I think the overarching message right now is that we need to broaden our techniques and vision involved in risk management. And it's no longer something that people simply do in a darkened room with quants when you're looking at risk management. You need to actually look at the wider social context of risk management. And another theme that's come out very clearly from the conference is the importance of looking at systems as a whole and looking at the interplay of systems. I think one of the key things I've taken away from the discussion is that there is now a very welcome dialogue going on between physicists, computer scientists, risk managers, mathematicians, sociologists, and even people like myself who are trained in anthropology and now work as journalists. And frankly, that's wonderful, because having more diversity of views is not simply a way to ensure that you put some common sense back into risk management. It's also a much more effective way to try and model some of the systemic feedbacks that tend to occur when we as a diverse society interact with each other. Another key point that's come out of the dialogue in the last couple of days is the degree to which people are trying to put the human factor back into many of these quantitative models and looking at the fact that actually we as human beings are not rational as so much of the efficient market hypothesis view of the world tended to assume. Common sense is a word that most of us grew up hearing a lot about as kids and then tend to forget as adults. But what common sense basically is the ability to step back from a situation or a model or a risky trade and simply look at it in a wider context and ask, does it make sense? And 9 times out of 10, the task of asking whether something makes sense is trying to look at things within the bigger picture, join up the dots, take a view that isn't about silos and tunnel vision, but tries to see the totality of a situation. For the most part, Mr. and Mrs. Average are not interested in risk studies until something blows up and they suffer the consequence of either a risky bet or a failure to spot some of the looming dangers that were developing in the system. So inevitably, 2 or 3 years after the great financial crisis of 2008, there was a lot of focus on risk management and risk studies. Now, as the world appears to be a bit calmer in some senses in the financial sphere, maybe some of that interest is starting to ebb away. But in some ways that's a tragedy, because the moment when you need to be paying most attention to risk is actually when it's least talked about. Conferences where you get together a diverse group of people to talk about the issues are absolutely critical, because we all know that we're very busy, we all scurry around in our own little silo. We're all prey to tunnel vision because we're simply concentrating on our own area of specialism. And specialism is good. We need to specialise to actually have the in-depth knowledge to push forward the frontiers of research. But if we get too deeply embedded in our little silos and tunnels, we fail to see the bigger picture. And so one value of conferences is they do actually force different types of people to come together and share ideas and be challenged and question our own assumptions.